Once again, I would like to say good morning to everyone. Welcome to the Creo Options Modeler webinar. My name is Michael Wimberly, and of course I will be doing the presentation of the software. Alright, so just an overall agenda for the webinar. We'll go through a simple overview of who I am, of course Boundary Systems as a whole, as well as the Creo Options Modeler demo, and then of course some Q&A after it's all completed. So real quickly, my name is Michael Wimberly. Of course, I am a Senior Technical Specialist for Boundary Systems. I've been working with PTC products for well over 15 years now. I am a certified instructor in Creo as well as Windchill classes, as well as a certified Windchill implementer. So I actually do implementations on that as well. I myself am located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Boundary Systems is actually out of Cleveland. So the headquarters is actually in Cleveland. We are a software product reseller as well as a 3D printer reseller as well. So once again, we are, as far as technology leaders, we're partners with Stratus, which is 3D printers. We also are partners with PTC, Autodesk, eTraj, and of course many other technical companies. We are number 16 as far as the fastest growing companies in the greater Cleveland area. We have actually been on several lists over the last couple of years, which you'll see in just a few minutes. But some of our core capabilities, we are specialized in product lifecycle management as well as data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, 3D printing, and of course product development. So we have a wide range of areas that we actually cover, everywhere from selling you to software to actually helping you not only install the software, but helping you with some of the tasks that you may have with the software. And of course, we do have our 3D printing, which is probably one of the faster growing industries going on right now. The more and more I look in the industry, I see more and more people using 3D printers. On the right side, you can see some of our current partners. You know, we're partners with Cooper Tires, View-Ray, Little Tikes, Patel, Dana, Snap-on, Step2, Via Motors, so on and so forth. So those are just a few of our customers. That's not, of course, an entire summary of all of our customers. So we have quite a few customers that we work with. But once again, for Boundary Systems as a whole, some of our industry awards, for the Inc. 5000 in 2011, we were 1150. In 2012, we were 1103, 1398, 2014, 4,378. So as you can see, we've been consistently on that list for quite some time as far as the Inc. 5000. And in the Weatherhead 100, you know, as you can see, 2012 we're number 10, 2013 we're 14, and then 2014 we're actually number 32. So we continue to maintain our presence in all these different areas as far as growth in our company and progression in our company. Some of the major accreditations, once again, Stratus Support Service Provider, Windchill Certified Implementer with PTC Preferred Service Provider, as well as a PTC Certified Training Partner. We have training facilities in Ohio, as well as in Pennsylvania, as well as Michigan. And we also do training, of course, in Indiana and Kentucky as well. And basically, we can go wherever you are. All right. So with that, we'll now jump into the actual presentation. That's just some of our additional information. So with what we're working on, Options Modeler, in the world, you'll notice that almost everything we purchase has options or variations for us to choose from. This isn't necessarily a bad thing because we can customize things the way we want them. We always like to get things exactly the way we want, so the more options, the better. I know I'm that way. I'm sure you guys are probably that way as well. Some of the options, some examples of things that you can customize in the world, your house. You know, you have your core house, but then you can go in and have little modular pieces of it added. So we can go through and add a 1 or 2 car garage. We can go through and add a patio. We can go in and add a sunroom. So you have your core area, but you have additional modules that you can go in and add on, additional options that you may want. You can also go through and customize your car. This is, of course, is the Bentley. I'm sure some people online have a Bentley. But you can go through and start with your core car and then go in and add add-ons there. So what type of wheels do you want? You want 20-inch wheels? You want 21-inch rims? You know, do you want things associated with the exterior? What exterior colors do you want? And once again, you can go through and simply use check marks to go through and add what you want. And it will continue to add to that. So you have cars, you have houses, and we have something even more simpler, your food. Who doesn't like to get it your way? You can go through and actually customize your food. This, of course, is not Burger King, but Five Guys. And anybody who's been to Five Guys know that you can pretty much get anything that you can think of on a Five Guys burger. So you can go through and order your burger. You start with a single burger, a cheeseburger, so on and so forth, and go in and customize that. You go through and simply, with check mark, once again, they go through and verify, okay, this is what you want, this is what you want, this is what you want. So you can go through and specify exactly what you want on that burger. So by having so many different options, we can go through and customize the burger the exact way we want it while we're driving in the car the way we wanted it, living in the house the way we wanted it. So we can go through and customize that exactly the way we want. But with that, options and variations are really nice to have, but only if you can simply, only if they can be simply understood and easy to work with. We all have this person either at work or in our family that basically has a lot of everything. But this is their organization. They know exactly where something is. I can go through and tell them I need this paper, this document from this day, and they can go in and tell me exactly where that file is. But you, on the other hand, you could go in there and have no idea where anything is. So this is one of those things, you know, for jobs, we always call that job security. But because you know exactly where things are, that doesn't mean anybody else can go in and help themselves to it. And the way the companies are run now, it's good that more people know how to do multiple things. So instead of having something like this, you know, it's better to go in and organize it. So we can have our drawers, and those things are labeled based on, you know, maybe it's, you know, customer data, maybe it's our marketing material, maybe it's our financing material. So we can have different drawers specified for different categories, and then in those drawers have different folders to go in and find what we actually need. So this is a simple thing. And this next one, how many people have actually been to the doctor and seen this? This is probably the most organized filing system that I've ever seen. They know exactly where it is. Everybody in the office can go and find a file if they're simply told what they need to find. So we can scale it down to something as simple as these drawers, or we can have something as large as this doctor's office. And I know a lot of this is going to digital, so a lot of it's in the computer, but I know many of us have been to doctors where we've seen their filing system. And once again, they know exactly where your file is and anything associated with your file. So these things are great. So as you can see, things do need to be scalable. So where does Option Modeler fall into that? Well, Option Modeler is a detailed application for creating and validating 3D modular product assemblies, no matter the complexity. It can be a simple file that has 2 or 3 parts that you go through and swap out, something like a drill, and you have a drill head. You can go through and swap out the different types of drill heads. Or something as complex as the space shuttle. You know, maybe you can go in and swap out, you know, the landing gear or the nose or the seats inside of it, things like that. What you do is you create reusable product modules and define how they interface and assemble. So we're going in and we're defining multiple modules that basically do the same function, but we're going in and defining the similar references. This reference is equivalent to this reference. And you also achieve faster design cycles by creating and validating product modules in 3D early in the design phase. So instead of going in and waiting till the last minute, or basically when it's done to see whether or not this other option will work, we can do that in the process of designing our files. So that way, if we do need to go in and make some tweaks, we can do that right there on the fly. And then once again, automate the creation of any product by defining common architecture, product modules, and manage how they interface and assemble. So once again, you can make it very simple. Well, just when we saw when we're doing ordering. Okay, we're simply selecting check marks. These are the things that I want to go through and have in this module. So I'm going to go in and check the boxes that I want. And now everything will fit together based on the way that I've designed it. Here's another simple example, a car seat. Very easy. You think it's a very simple thing. You have the seats, you have the color of the seat, you have the seating, curvature, you actually have the armrest, the headrest, steering, number of doors in the car, seat adjustment. All those things, simple options. But when you go through and use a variable equation to go through and figure out how many variations there can be, you come to find out that just with this car seat, there's 864 seat combinations using just the options that you see there on the slide. So as you can see, things can grow exponentially just by adding options. Once again, that builds in flexibility, but it also can build in complexity. But this is where Option Modeler comes in and allows you to handle that pretty quick and pretty easily. So when you're working with your models, how do you want to go through and build them? Well, when you're defining configurable models, you want to make sure they're simple and consistent with other modeling practices. So once again, so that anybody that's using it can understand how things go together and don't have any issues when they have to go through and swap something out. As well as you don't want them to require any special programming. You want it to be something simple. Once again, you're modular. So you want to be able to swap them out without having to go through and rewrite any code or rewrite any relations that may go through and actually make things fail. And then once again, your validation. Validation must scale for large products. As we saw before when we had the small file cabinet, it's easy to go through and validate it. Yeah, I can open up this drawer, find the files that I want because all the folders are located. Are labeled. But when you do go to the level of like a doctor's office, now you're dealing with thousands, hundreds of thousands of files that you have to now go through and validate that the process that we set up to find and pull files together is a valid process. So once again, it must be scalable. So once again, when we're dealing with our CAD models, you want visual representation. So we want to be able to visually look at that and see, yes, it works right. We want to go through and look at the CAD models, maybe run interference checks and make sure everything works properly. And then, of course, the product structure to make sure all the files that we need are actually inside of the actual file. All right, so at this point, I'm going to stop with all of the slides, and now we're going to go ahead and go right into the demonstration. I'm waiting for the screen to pop up. There you go. All right, so what we have here is a simple motorcycle. This motorcycle is just simply one variation of this motorcycle. If we look into our model tree, we see that we have these special labeled assemblies. Those are modular assemblies. So when we expand them, we can see that each one has multiple options. But you can also see what's actually included currently in this model that we're looking at. So remember we talked about the checkboxes and things making sense. Well, that's what we're looking at here. So these are the actual states of the models, and this is how we've gone through and selected them. So we've gone in and create these sub-assemblies, and we've labeled each of the components. So we have, for the forks, we have a street fork, an off-road fork, and a racing fork. Well, those things correspond with the wheels. We have our front wheel, once again, street, racing, and off-road. So you can see those as well. So everything is set up so that it makes sense to us. So not only to us, but somebody else, maybe marketing, maybe, the product manager, or maybe, somebody high up or somebody that doesn't use the CAD system on a regular basis. They need to create a bill of material for a certain configuration. Simply go into there, open it up, select check boxes, and get the BOM that you want. So if you notice, everything has a setting except for the frames. So we need to go in and actually assign the choice options for the frames. So up here, I'm going to go in to assigning choices. You can see here that everything is selected, or I should say filled out. And what we're going to do is go in and edit this and add a new option. The new option is going to be frame. And we're going to have a large frame, and we're going to have a small frame. All right, now all we need to do is assign which frame, actual frames, goes with our selection option. So we have the CTR body, basically the center body, and the main frame. So the large frame is actually the CTR. So I'm going to come up here and select in here that I want the CTR body to be the large frame. I'm selecting there again, and the main frame is going to be the small frame. Done. Once I hit the close, now that information is now populated over here. Now we can go through and now configure some more. So let's go in and build up one. Well, we build them up by simply going into the variant builder. We want to create a variation of this. So you can see that it's into 3 different columns. You have the actual selections in your options list. You have the actual model tree, which shows everything that we've seen over in the model tree itself. And then you actually have the graphics display of everything. Now, this doesn't show everything. Once everything is up in RAM, it'll actually show you all the options that are here. So the things that are in solid color don't have variations. The things that are transparent do have variations. So what I'm going to do over here in the options list is expand everything so I can see the selection. So just like I said, when you're ordering something, you know, whether it's house configurations or whether it's your car or even your lunch, check boxes. It's simple. You go in and I want to go in and create small motor. I want this to be the off-road with the small frame. Once again, the off-road tires. I want, once again, using the small arm, the small attachment at the back, off-road, and of course the standard shock. Now up here, I'm actually going to save this, and I'm going to call this SFS off-road. So this is actually a configuration that I want to maintain. Now once again, we don't see everything over here updating, but we will as we continue on. So I'm going to save this. Now the way I'm going to save this, I'm simply going to save this inside of the assembly as a variant option. So I'm not going to save this outside of the assembly. So I'm going to save this as SFS off-road inside the assembly. And now I'm going to simply tell it to update the assembly. What it's doing now is pulling the items up in RAM. We can now see everything. There are the new files. And there's a new configuration. Very simple. We want to go in and create a new one. So we want to go in and create one. Once again, expanding everything out. And this one I'm going to make a little bit larger. This is going to be the street racer, large, street. I'm going to use the wide rear arm. Once again, the larger attachment, street, and then of course the standard shock. And there's that configuration. You can see in the model tree, you know, everything that has a little star is the information that it's actually using for the current configuration. So I'm going to now save this one as street bike. Actually, I need to put my label in front of it as underscore street bike. And then once again, save this inside of the assembly. And then once again, update the assembly here. And there it is. Once again, all we simply did was go in and configure our layout. Now, what we currently have works fine, but we do want to go in and add some additional options to this. So what we want to go in and do is add another frame. So what I'm going to do is take the frame assembly, I'm going to open it up. All right, and what I want to do is simply add another module, and this one is actually going to be a space frame. So there we have it. Now, in order for this to work, I need to go through and assign the references. So I'm going to go ahead and explode this out so we can see all 3 of them. And once again, what I need to do is go into the referencing table. So currently the first 2 items, which are these first 2 columns, already have the references. So what I want to do is I want to go in and assign references based on this part inside of this assembly. And I wanted to add those references or try to configure the references to the new frame. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to evaluate. And because of the way we set this up, everything is automatically populated because we've gone through and named our assembly references the same way. So maybe a steering axis, maybe a mounting surface. We've gone through and renamed those so that they're coordinate with each other. Or maybe I've copied it from the original one and it's using those feature numbers to go in and associate it as well. So then we have that frame. So I'll go ahead and close out this And you can see in this assembly it automatically shows up, but that's just because we need to go in and regenerate. Once we regenerate, it updates that information. Now, currently that does not have an assignment, so of course we'll need to go through and assign it. Edit once again, go back into frame, and now add wide as the frame. And now associate the space frame. That should actually be space, but there we go. So now that one's there. So now we have, once again, another configuration that we can go through and assign. Large street, wide street, wide travel street standard. And then once again, I'm not going to worry about saving this one. There's that assembly. And there's that configuration. All right. Now what you're able to do at this point is go in and do evaluations. And what we can see is when we put this in here, there's some interference problems. So we're able to go through into this part and actually manipulate it. I want to go in here and show my features so that I can go through and just manipulate. I'm just going to manipulate the top bar for right now. So I'm going to expand the space frame, and I'm going to edit the definition on that tube. So what we need to do is simply make sure that it misses the geometry, so the engine itself. So I'm going to bring this back down so it still has a nice little hump in it. And there we go. So now we can go through and verify that yes, this does miss. Go back to the top level assembly, reactivate it, and once again we can go in and continue on. So this once again allows us to go through and see once again early in the design process that yes, we can put this frame in here, but it needs a little tweaking in order to work with this configuration. So there's many things that we can go in and do. One of the things that we can go in and do is, create new modular assemblies. So right now this fuel tank does not have a modular assembly, it's just by itself. But I want to go through and make it into a modular assembly. So I'm going to go through and select on it, and I'm going to say basically transfer to modular. And it's going to be a brand new modular assembly, and I'm going to call this one tanks. And then I'm going to say OK. And that's the original tank, and it's in the bike assembly, which is where I want it to be. Great. Now I'm going to go into tanks, open it up, and add in a few more. So once again, add modular. I'm just going to go in and type in tank, and I have fuel tank option 2. Add another tank. This is fuel tank split. Once again, explode this out. And there they are. So once again, I'll need to go through and do my reference pairing. So once again, that inside of this assembly, and the items that I want to reference are this one and that one. So basically, copy the references or duplicate the references if you can on the new files. Evaluate, and once again, because they were all copied from the original one, it's easy for it to go in and find the references. Great. Now at this point, I'm going to go in and actually assign choices. This is another way of making it modular, because what we have so far is we actually have the modular or the assignments actually at the top level assembly. I can do them here in the sub-assembly as well. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to call it tanks. And I'm going to call this one the original. I'm going to call this one blue. I'm going to call this one split. And then once again, assign them. So for the original, that'll be here. For option 2, which is the blue one, that'll be here. And then for the split, that'll be here. Great. So there they are. And we can see that each one of them now has their references. So when I go back to my top level assembly and I expand tanks, there everything is. Now, I can go through and specify just by simply regenerating. This one was already in there, so it went in and removed those two, and now we have the original. So what I'm going to do is go back into my variant builder, go back to my predefined ones, being the street bike, and I'm going to go in now to tanks, and I'm going to change that to being the split tank. Update the assembly. Yes. That didn't update. Why didn't it update? Oh, I overrode what was there. Shoot. I didn't mean to update. But because it's so easy, I'm going to go through and change my options. Sorry about this. Off-road, standard, and then the split tank. Update the assembly. Yes. There it is. Okay. And there it is. So now you can see that the tank itself actually needs to be seated down a little bit. But you can see the tank now actually misses the bar where the original tank actually interfered with that bar. So there's many different things that we can do with this. So once again, in the modular assembly, what you're simply doing is overbuilding your assembly to add all of the necessary or the swappable objects. So you put them all in there, you assign the references as necessary, and that allows you to go through and be able to go into the assembly and simply select which ones you want. So it makes it very simple and very easy to go through and manipulate and find the different variations to make sure things work properly. All right. Wait a minute. There was a question I'm trying to get to. Is there a way to save a copy of a particular configuration? Yes. Thank you. Is there an option? Is there a way to go in and save it? Yes, it is. So what we can do is once we've gone through and defined our configuration, let's go ahead and use one of the existing ones, street bike. So there's a street bike. So what I did so far was just saved it inside of the assembly. There is the option of saving it as a local file. So I'm going to call that street bike series -1. So that can actually save that. You can also go through and create your product variant. And there's that assembly. Now what it does, it actually brings it out, and it is a separate assembly. So it's no longer tied to the other one. As you notice, your parts here are just individual parts. Except for the tanks, because I didn't update the tanks. So this is now an assembly that you can now pull out and use anywhere that you want. You can go through and start another variant assembly from that, or use that as a production now. Create your BOM, go from there. So this is your standalone option there. I'm trying to see this other question, but it's not extending my box. Basically, we use option modeler. Start an assembly. That can be further. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, this is a good starting point. The comment that was made, that this is a good starting point for multiple designs. So this is one way of going and trying different design iterations to see what works. And then once you figure out one that works, you can save it out and now continue to work forward from there. All right, so at this point, I will conclude the demo. I just realized what time it was, so I'm actually going to go back to here. And then once again, just a few simple things, modules, just as an overview. Common industry practices. Once again, modules provide a product is divided into building blocks with interfaces. Each module consists of one or more interchangeable modules. Once again, as you see with tires, you have multiple tires you can do. Here we have multiple frames. Modular products represent the product designs of the family products, organizing set modules into an overall structure. Controlling modular products. Options, once again, for sales, manufacturing, technical staff, and other influence. So once again, you're going in as making the options based on who's actually going to go in and access this information, so that they understand what they're selecting. So you may name it something from engineering, but that doesn't mean much for marketing. From a marketing standpoint, they may need specifically part numbers or specific characteristics of different items. And then, of course, managing your product configurations. Many engineers, sales, and manufacturing configurations may be needed. Once again, we can go through into the assembly itself and just save them within the assembly and be able to access them from the variant builder because we've already stored those. Or we can go through once again in the variant builder and at some point bring those out as separate assemblies. All right. The most important part of that is reuse, because by going in and creating your modular assemblies, I'm not just locked in with using this on this one product, like these fuel tanks. I can go through and now take that fuel tank assembly and use that in any configuration of motorcycle that we have, or the frames, so I can go through and use those inside of different assemblies, not just this one. So by being able to reuse that data, I don't have to recreate the wheel to see what options are available. I wonder if this would work good on this assembly. Well, bring it into the assembly and let's find out. So it makes it very easy and very flexible to be able to build up multiple configurations. Even if you look at these two pictures at the bottom of the overhead, for two different scoops on the front of the tractors. That's just two examples. You may have a plow, you may have forks, whatever it may be. So there's multiple things that you can go through and be able to interchange very easily inside of these assemblies. All right. So at this point, I will open it up to any questions. So if there are questions, please ask. Oh, okay. How does this look like in a drawing? In a drawing, it should just show, it should just show the active components. I'm thinking it should only show the active components, kind of like when you're doing a simplified rep, because the other stuff is excluded. So it should only show what you're actually showing on the screen for a BOM. It says, does this come with Creo or is it a separate license? This is a separate option from your standard Creo license. So it is an add-on. It just, of course, works inside of Creo. Is this fully compatible with Windchill? If so, is there any special licenses needed for that? Yes, it is compatible with Windchill. It works just like any other assembly. So when you pull out this the SKF bike series assembly is going to pull all the stuff that it needs for it. So it works fine with inside of there. I don't know whether or not you can separate BOMs with the variant states. I don't think you can. So all the different variants that you may have created, I don't know if you can separate that inside of Windchill though. But I know it does see, of course, all the components. Is everything contained? The next question is everything contained in the assembly file or are there additional files? No, this is all one file. So it works similar to an interchange assembly because you're overbuilding. Actually, I'm going to go back to my other screen just so you can see my screen. So every assembly that we see here is a standalone assembly. And it is basically equivalent to like doing an interchange assembly. So you're adding all the components that you want inside of this assembly. So the difference between this and an interchange is basically kind of the labeling, the way it works inside of the modular assembly. So with the interchange, you have the replace option that you can go in and replace, and it brings up that interchange assembly. Here we're using the variant builder to do that. So we're going inside of here and selecting the assemblies or the options that we want to go through and use. So yes, everything is contained. Everything is contained inside of their individual modular assemblies. So I'm hoping that answers your question properly at that time. Okay. Any other questions on any of this? Oh, I don't have a contact slide except for my home self. Well, if you do want to get in touch with me on any of this, please contact myself. So let me go home. And I will actually put my email address right here because I didn't do it before. At boundariesys.com. So you can reach me there. If you have immediate questions, I can also be reached here. And if I don't have the question, especially if it's a question on pricing and things like that, I'll just get you in touch with one of our sales people. We have multiple people that we can go in and get you in touch with to go through and help you out with that. For technical questions, you can definitely contact me. I'll answer the questions as best I can. But if, once again, the sales, you can still contact me and I'll just get someone else in touch with you. So if there aren't any additional questions, this will conclude this webinar. And I do thank you for your attention, for your attendance, and I hope that something that we've done in this webinar was beneficial to you. So thank you once again, and have a great afternoon. Go get some Five Guys. Not that I'm advertising, but hey, go get some Five Guys.